Continuing onwards, we are now leaving the horse's mouth and going to its head. A big thing that a lot of people don't understand is there are a lot of different types of blinkers and how significantly blinkers can affect performance. Now, I understand most of you guys who are handicappers out there can look and see, oh, first time blinkers, and you know how significant that can be. I am going to make a separate video that I will either pair with this or do on its own, where I go into a barn and show you all the different types of blinkers that we can use on horses and what each one does. But to give you a small story of a trainer who is one of the greatest trainers of all time, you guys might not know him because he's not from the United States. He was a trainer in Australia called Bart Cummings. He was known for being able to get horses that could win the Melbourne Cup. And he was phenomenal in just an amazing trainer. Bart Cummings was very close friends with Charlie Whittingham. Bart came over to the United States on a trip, was at Charlie's barn, saw blinkers, thought they were an interesting piece of equipment, put them in a horse, and it improved his horse's performance so significantly that they suspended him for a year. The jurisdiction, and I've read his book, it's incredible. They searched his barn, they tested the horse head to toe. They thought he had somehow figured out a way to cheat that did not include this equipment, and thought there's no way in hell that blinkers can change a horse from running the way that it was to winning the way that it did that day. And that's how significant blinkers can be on a horse. You can have horses that are a little bit lazy in a race and you add blinkers to it, and now all of a sudden they're on the bridle and they're focused and they're not paying attention to everything going on around them, and it changes them to where they're paying attention to their job. I probably should discuss why blinkers help a horse and how they can help a horse. It depends on what you're trying to fix with each horse. A lot of times you'll see blinkers added and all of a sudden a horse that was off the pace is now on the lead. It can work in a myriad of different ways based on what types of blinkers you are using on those horses, which is why I want to touch on what certain blinkers do so you know what to look for when you're at the races. It's hard to see on TV. You can see it a little bit, but it's if you're at the races, you can see some of the small things. So cheater blinkers are about maybe half an inch to an inch. You put them on horses that have a tendency to watch the rider and wait on the rider. It is a way to where you're trying to just get them to not pay attention to the rider and really look at, still be able to see the horses next to them so they remain competitive, still be able to see everything that's going on, but hide that rider on their back a little bit more so they're not waiting on cues from that rider. You will get horses in races that will wait on cues from riders versus running their race and then responding when the rider asks them. So cheater blinkers are used in horses that you might want to focus them up a little bit more, but you don't want them too over aggressive. What you will see on a lot of horses, per se, like a Baffert horse, you'll see French cut blinkers. French cut blinkers are about 2 inches, 1.5 to 2 inches. They don't curve, they just stick straight out. Basically, that's for a horse where you want their attention fully focused forward. Within that, you're trying to get that horse to be on the bit, on the bridle. Big reason why I use blinkers is you're trying to get the horse to focus in specific ways that it's not currently focusing in. Horses that might be a little bit lazy, that you want a little bit more oomph out of and get them into a race earlier, you'll put on a French cup and you'll send them and you'll teach them to have speed in a race to run. Taking another step from there is semis. Typically the next type of blinker you're going to see is semis with holes. The reason why you put the holes in is because you don't want the horse paying attention to the horse on the outside of them, but you do want the horse being able to see what's coming up behind it. The reason why you use semis with holes is you don't want them too keen, which with a French cup to where they're tugging on the rider and they're on the lead. You want them focused but balanced. So you want a little bit more, I'm in the bridle, I'm in the race, I'm paying attention, but not so much where I'm going hell-bent all out. It's kind of a step back, even though it's a slightly bigger cup. That hole in the back of the blinker allows them to kind of see more what's going on.
Which would you put on a horse that is hesitant to go in between horses? The ones that are a little fearful and just see the gap and then they hesitate versus shooting through?
More semis with holes. Those tend to help horses kind of focus in on those gaps and go through. A lot of times, and you might see it in races, I used to use it a lot because I did learn from Baffert, coupling a shadow roll with French cup blinkers. That really will put a horse on the bridle. A lot of people don't understand just how those two pieces of equipment work. A shadow roll is used typically in horses. Some people say it's to not look at shadows. Rarely are these horses looking at shadows. It helps them. What I used to use it for most is they don't see horses' heels in front of them. They're a little bit less fearful of being close in company. They're not so hesitant to run up on horses. So when you use that and you couple that with a French cup blinker, their focus is entirely forward and entirely on the job in front of them. They're not paying on anything to the sides of them or behind them, and they're not really paying attention to things that are kind of underneath where they can't fully see forward. It's fully focused ahead. You get those horses' attention just forward and forward momentum, and that's all they want to do. So, yes.
Is there a particular blinker that you would use if you specifically want your horse to come flying out of the gate and go? Does the size matter, or is it just any type of blinker?
French cups. French cups are going to be your best bet there. Horses that you want to be quick out of the gate, you put a French cup on because basically their attention's forward. They're paying attention forward. They can't see the rider. They can see the horse on the side of them. They're a little bit more focused in everything in front of them, and they're quicker to break out of the gate. So, as I said in this video, there's a lot here. There are so many cups. You'll hear full cups. Full cups are for horses that want to blow turns, lug out, be really difficult. That's not always a behavioral thing. Sometimes that is an unsoundness thing that is leading to a behavioral thing, which is why I have full cup horses put on, full cup blinkers put on a horse. But we will make a video where I walk you through a barn and show you all the different types of blinkers. I've even used blinkers on a horse, which I had to get approved because he hated kickback in his face. So it was a French cup blinker that had a mesh goggle because the mesh goggles helped him not be so fearful of kickback in a race. So there's a ton of stuff that can help these horses out.
And in overseas, they often don't use blinkers. They use the little cheek pieces, don't they?
So yes, so she touched on something. It's coming into America more and more, is the cheek pieces on the sides of the bridle. That functions very similar. It's in between a French cup and in between a cheater. Basically, the horse is still focused forward. They're not so closed off. They can still see a lot, but it just helps them not pay attention as much to the rider. And so it's kind of in between the two, but they can still have full vision on both sides. So I used to love cheek pieces. I think they're very interesting because it does allow a horse that you really just don't want them paying attention to the rider or paying attention to things that are going on not as much behind them. It's a happy medium between a cheater and a French cup, and it kind of almost acts as a semi with holes.